Hey everyone, this is Derrick Broze of the Conscious Resistance Network, and today we're going to talk about Jeffrey Epstein and maybe another little rabbit hole to get into that might have some important details. But before we do that, I want to remind you guys to bookmark theconsciousresistance.com to get plugged in with all of our latest updates. Of course, all the Epstein stuff you guys want. I know you're addicted. You can follow us on Minds, of course. You can follow us on Steemit, DTube. You can join our Discord channel to get involved in the chat once the YouTube chat ends. You can sign up for text lists via Remind, which I highly recommend so you don't have to depend on YouTube. And if you want to support me on patreon.com/Derrick Broze, that is greatly appreciated. And of course, all this month we are running a fundraiser campaign, which you can find in the link below. It says support the future of the Conscious Resistance Network, and I would appreciate it if you do that. Sign up for our email newsletter, and for those of you who want to get Kratom or CBD, get it through My Brave Botanicals, and you help support us that way too. All right, so let's get into it, guys. There's this new report from the New York Post coming out just recently, and it says, jail guards threatening former Epstein cellmate Nicholas Tartaglione. I don't know how to say this Italian last name, but I've briefly mentioned this guy before, and essentially what you need to know is this guy is a ex-cop. Right there on the left, he's an ex-cop who is accused of murder. I think he murdered several people involved in drug-related crimes, and he's facing the death penalty. So he was originally Epstein's cellmate at the MCC and in New York City and Manhattan. And then whenever the first alleged suicide attempt happened, there was different reports. First, there was reports saying that he saved Epstein, and then there were some reports by Epstein's attorneys saying that he may have actually harmed Epstein. So we'll get into that in just a moment. But I remember thinking about this like, this is interesting. For one, you got to understand that the prison that Epstein was in, you had El Chapo, and El Chapo, of course, is known to have worked with the U.S. government, so it's interesting he was there. Then you got this cop who is convicted of murdering other people, and they put Epstein with him, and you can see he's like this huge, they describe him as hulking in this article. And I just thought that was an interesting detail. Like, okay, a dirty cop who's facing death penalty charges, how hard would that be to pay him off or something to kill Epstein? If that, that's what I was thinking before this even happened. And then Epstein's first suicide attempt, or what we're told was a suicide attempt, happened. The guy claims he found him. And this is, of course, on July 23rd. They were separated before Epstein allegedly hanged himself on August 10th. And where is it right here? Epstein's lawyers had originally said that Tartaglione, however you say it, was involved in Epstein's neck injuries. And the attorney for this former cop denied the allegations. But in the new news here, what we have here is the lawyer for that cop has filed paperwork today here in New York City and Manhattan saying that he has been told by various guards to, quote, shut up, stop talking, and stop complaining, as questions swirled about how the accused sex trafficker Epstein was able to commit suicide. His attorney, Bruce Barkett, says in a letter to White Plains federal judge Kenneth Karras. And the letter says, quote, the clear message Mr. Tartaglione has received is that if he conveys information about the facility or about Epstein's recent suicide, there will be a price to pay. Whether or not the investigators into the suicide chose to interview him about the attempted suicide to which he was witness, or about how the facility is run and the conditions under which the inmates are forced to live, the corrections officers know he has information potentially very damaging to the very people now charged with guarding him or their coworkers. So, that's a pretty bold statement there. And of course, this is a letter from the lawyer of this former cop who is, facing the death penalty for his alleged involvement in 4 drug-related murders. And, we should also talk about that the MCC is historically known as being one of the worst places to be. It's like super, I think it's super max prison. And the lawyer Barkett describes the deplorable conditions, including a, quote, serious rodent and insect infestation. And we heard this from Epstein as well. Epstein was describing having to eat his food off the floor and rats and bugs and stuff like that. And, it's a kind of a big change from the way he was treated when he was in Miami. I don't know if you guys have seen the other recent reports coming from the Miami Herald where they talked about Epstein was allowed to buy little girls' panties while he was serving in Miami. Here you go. You can see it reported all over now. Epstein bought women's panties while serving time in Palm Beach jail. This is according to new records obtained by the Miami Herald. So, I mean, it just shows you that when Epstein was given that sweetheart deal, which, of course, Alexander Acosta, now resigned Labor Secretary, which was appointed by Donald Trump, in case you guys didn't get that picture yet, that Costa said, "Oh well, we tried to fight and give him the worst, the best, get the best deal for the victims we could, and if we didn't do this, then we would have got nothing." But the court records show, and I've talked about this before, but we're getting more details. The court records show that Epstein was allowed to leave for 16 hours a day. He had the guards dressing in like suits. Apparently, he wanted the guards who were guarding him to be dressed nicely. They had his door to his cell unlocked and open all the time. They installed a TV just for Epstein, and apparently he was allowed to buy women's panties for one reason or another. And the Miami Herald describes the panties as being way too small for the average adult female. So, who was Epstein buying the panties for? We don't know. As you can see right here, the panties were certainly too small for Epstein, who also purchased his briefs in men's mediums and large. So it wasn't like, okay, Epstein had a fetish for girls' panties. But my point with bringing that up is that's how he was treated 10 years ago in the Miami Palm Beach County Jail and down there. And now he's in the MCC where there's a rodent infestation and an insect infestation. And of course, for some people, this lends credence to the idea that he actually killed himself because, well, he's a billionaire who's used to being treated a certain way, and now he's eating food off the ground surrounded by insects and rodents, so he finally decided to kill himself. I don't know if I buy that story, but I do think that this cellmate is an interesting aspect of this. And when I first heard that he was cellmates with this guy, I thought that was curious because, as I said, this guy is already apparently a dirty cop and has been involved in all kinds of things. So I looked up the attorney who's representing him. His name's Bruce Barkett. And interestingly enough, he's a part of a law firm called Barkett, Epstein, Kieran, Aldia, and Lotorka. So it's kind of a coincidence, if you will. And you can see his background here. He's been practicing law since 1986. I did look him up a little bit. I've actually got his information. I am sending him an email to see if he's willing to talk about this, if he has anything else to say about his client being threatened, or if he has anything else to add to the whole Epstein saga. Here's his Twitter account, Bruce Barkett. And so on August 13th, he retweeted a tweet from Stephen Kastenbaum, who is a journalist with Westwood One News, senior correspondent, New York bureau chief, with Westwood One News, proud native Brooklynite. He said, attorney Bruce Barkett, who has a client in the special housing unit where Jeffrey Epstein apparently committed suicide, said, quote, the MCC is the worst detention facility or prison I have ever been, and I've been practicing for 30 years. So, yeah, this guy has something to say. And I'm going to try to get in touch with him and see if we can get to the bottom of that. And I just think, again, if anybody else wants to start the rabbit hole of helping me find out details about this guy and any other connections we should know, I think that he's a compromised individual. He's already facing the death penalty. Maybe somebody made him a deal he couldn't refuse behind the scenes. And of course, I'm just speculating at the moment, but I think this is something that's worth looking into, especially when the lawyer is now filing a letter saying that he's being threatened. So we need to look into that. And just a little piece I'll add to this. Those of you who are following the channel, like I told you the other day, I'm not going to do a video on every single little tidbit of Epstein news. But there was a new video that came out showing Prince Andrew, Duke of York, British royalty, leaving Epstein's house in 2010, I believe. And this was filmed 2 days before that famous picture of them taking a stroll in Central Park in New York. And there was a woman who was seen leaving the house and that Prince Andrew was waving bye to. And that woman has been identified now as a Australian socialite, daughter of a former prime minister. And we already know that the Epstein case has connections to prime ministers, obviously to royalty, to presidents. And this is a connection to the Australian prime minister's daughter. And the Sydney Morning Herald first noted the striking resemblance of Catherine Keating, whom the royal greets as she leaves Epstein's Upper East Side mega mansion in December 2010. And they confirm this, that she's the daughter of Paul Keating, who was Australia's prime minister from 1991 to 96. And interestingly enough, Catherine Keating, the daughter of former Australian prime minister, who left Sydney to live in New York, she also has ties to Ghislaine Maxwell, who has been accused, of course, of being the madam and the procurer of young girls. She even interviewed Maxwell for the Huffington Post about her now, closed nonprofit, ocean nonprofit called Terramar that I'm sure you guys are aware of. So here she is, Catherine Keating, daughter of former Australian Prime Minister, who was visiting Epstein's mansion in 2010 and hanging out with Prince Andrew, interviewing Ghislaine Maxwell. So, these are tight knit circles that all these different people run in, and it's important to kind of pick apart them and check into them and challenge them. And that's pretty much all I got for today, guys. Just a quick update. I'm out of town for the moment, so I might not be getting to videos the next couple days, but I do have a couple more coming up. There's a new fluoride study that I want to dissect. There's more news about the Catholic Church and about clergy in Australia being accused of pedophilia and trafficking and things like that. And we're going to get into all of that in the coming days. And there's other important stories that I want to cover, but I just wanted to get this one out. And again, anybody who wants to help me dig into this guy, Nicholas Tartaglione, I know if you're Italian, you're butchering the last name. I'm sorry. Help me look more into him. I'm going to try to get in touch with the lawyer. I'm going to email him, call him, and see if we can get any more details. And I'll keep you guys posted. Until next time, I appreciate the support. I again recommend and humbly request your support via patreon.com/Derrick Broze. Thank you to everybody who's been signing up. And if anybody wants to throw $5 or $10 into our fundraiser campaign, that would go a long way. As I've said in the last couple videos, we're about to get back to making documentaries, and it's happening all because of you guys. I no longer have financial support by writing articles for The Mind Unleashed or Activist Post or Ben Swan's Truth in Media or The Anti-Media or Mint Press News, or any of the outlets I've written for because of social media censorship. So I need your support to continue doing this, and I appreciate everyone who does help. All right, guys, thank you. Remember, you're powerful, you're beautiful, and you're free. Peace.